All right, so just to keep the council informed as we keep watching how our curbside recycling requirements are kind of unfolding, we thought we'd give you an update this evening, so I'll give the time to Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, it's good evening, council. We talked about this, gosh, probably a little over a year ago, I think. We talked a little bit about it with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee here back in the winter time, and so wanted to make sure that we had the whole council get an update on this again. We're still a ways away. We've been working on it for about a year, but as you'll see, there's still a lot of things to work our way through before we get to actually picking up people's recycling out in front of their house. Oop, man, that is sensitive. There we go. Yeah, so just a little bit of background for folks. Remember, this all came out of the Recycling Modernization Act from the 2021 state legislative session. Among many other things, it requires curbside recycling by July 1st of next year. So we're about 13 months out now from that deadline, which is rapidly approaching. Also important to keep in mind that's a requirement for all cities across the state that are over population 4,000. I believe there's only 5 or 6 in the state that actually applies to, and 4 of those are on the screen right there. So our region is heavily impacted by that legislation. Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, 5 or 6 that don't currently implement curbside recycling and are over 4,000 in population. So one of the other big components of the Recycling Modernization Act was this new concept to try and shift the costs of recycling from the consumers to the producers. And so this is kind of a typical method that recycling would go. So you got, a couple of folks that buy some things, so they pay their money to whoever produced, the laundry soap or bottled water, mustard or whatever that stuff is. They get the materials and then they have to pay to have all of that hauled away in the trash or recycling. And so the new method that's implemented through this is, again, you buy whatever the product is that you're buying, you receive that, but then additionally, now all of the companies that produce and sell any of that stuff into the state of Oregon, any customers, they also now have to pay into a producer responsibility organization, which will collect theoretically taxes and fees on all of those materials to help cover the cost of recycling that material, so that then when the consumer actually goes to throw their stuff away or recycle it or whatever they're doing with it, they're still paying to have that stuff taken away, but in theory the producer has also helped to cover some of the cost of recycling that material. So it's been working on for quite a while, but it's been slow, but there's been some things that have taken place. So one of the first things was the state had to establish a statewide recyclables material list. That was one of the other components of this Recycling Modernization Act, was to establish a statewide list of what will actually be recycled. And so that's important because depending on if there were certain materials that were included on that list, you have to handle them differently. Whether we have to accept glass bottles at the curb, or all those different types of things. It has an impact downstream on what types of equipment you're going to be using to accept those recyclables, where you take them, all those types of things. And then additionally, it has an impact on where those recycling markets are, or the buyers of those recyclable materials. Where are they? Are they, is there somebody in Portland, or do they need to be taken all the way up to Seattle or Alabama or China? So depending on what those materials are, a lot of that then has an impact on what the capital costs are and the ongoing costs are going to be of transporting it to get to those places to be recycled. So, additionally, then last year, throughout most of the year, State DEQ was going through a process to actually select the producer responsibility organizations. I think there was originally kind of an expectation that it was good. There was going to be multiple PROs. So something like all the cardboard box manufacturers would be one PRO, and all the plastic bottle manufacturers would be in another, or something like that. But what ended up happening is by the time they selected, there's really only one entity that I think through kind of some consolidation of efforts ended up being named the PRO for the state of Oregon, which is named Circular Action Alliance. So they got selected towards the end of last year in the fall. So they've now spent most of the winter and early spring just hiring the staff because they wouldn't have had these staff on hand otherwise if they didn't have this contract with the state of Oregon. So they've been staffing up through the winter and fall, and then now they've been planning additionally a little bit more of their business model and planning their work and how they're going to begin working with local governments to roll this program out. Meanwhile, State DEQ was doing some work to try and help speed the process along a little bit through doing some needs assessment work beginning last spring. And that was really outreach to all of the communities across the state to identify, what does your community or your solid waste provider need in order to implement the Recycling Modernization Act. So City of Hermiston, we coordinated with sanitary disposal. We have Kevin Miracle here with us this evening. He helped us coordinate with City of Umatilla, City of Boardman as well, as we were trying to fill out those fairly high-level needs assessments. So that's things like, we need a couple of additional dedicated recycling trucks. We got to buy 6,000 plus recycling carts. But additionally, one of the big things is, do we need or could we use a regional reload facility to consolidate all of the recyclable materials to then make it easier to ship out more cost effectively to some of those other markets. And so at this point, we're kind of putting all those things into that regional needs assessment that we turned back. So now to the point that we are now, Circular Action Alliance, now they have all their staff. They've just here in the last week or so begun sending out a much more detailed needs assessment to all of the communities. So they're taking DEQ's original needs assessment as kind of a jumping off point, but now they need a lot more detail included in that needs assessment to get their arms around what all is actually going to be needed in order to implement this. So looking forward, and these are simply Mark Morgan's prognostications, so don't take those timelines as fact, but this is kind of where I see things going here. After the more detailed needs assessment is completed and Circular Action Alliance has that, they're going to need to spend, the summer into the fall refining a lot more detail what their upfront capital and ongoing operational costs are going to be for implementing the program. They won't, once they have that, then they will hopefully be able to finally establish what an actual producer tax or fee is going to be. So again, thinking back to that graphic, everybody that sells a bottle of water into the state or, a cardboard box or whatever, they're going to have to be paying the PRO. And so they're not going to know what to pay until Circular Action Alliance actually has their costs identified. So the hope is that they should probably have that producer tax established sometime this coming winter. I'm estimating or assuming that sometime around that same time frame is probably when we will get our first projections of what that revenue will actually look like once it gets down to the local level for actually buying additional carts, buying additional trucks, buying or developing a regional reload facility. So I'm thinking we're probably 6 months plus before we have a good projection of how much revenue is going to come out of that producer responsibility organization. So then it probably won't be until spring of 25 until those first revenues are available. So once the PRO establishes that tax, then all of the producers that are selling things have to begin baking that into their rates that they're selling their goods at, and then turning around and remitting that to the state. State's got to collect it, account it, and eventually maybe turn it down to the local level. So probably sometime in the spring, we won't actually kind of ground truth if those revenue projections were real or not. So. There we go. So some of the challenges that we're still working on here locally, I think probably the biggest challenge is a lot of those things that I mentioned have been worked on already at the local level with sanitary disposal and the city. We have a lot of those same processes that we have to work through, but we're kind of operating at a 6 to 12 month lag behind the state because it's kind of wasted effort to do a lot of this work until we get more concrete answers from the state on some of these things. So, 6 to 12 months out probably still for having when or how much that revenue is going to be from the PRO. Additionally, we won't know until after the PRO has done all of its work in accumulating all of the needs assessments from all around the state until they'll tell us, what capital and operational costs they will help to pay for and how much that's going to be. Additionally, we won't know whether and how much they will help to cover something like a regional reload facility. And that's one of the big linchpins in some of our cost planning and projections is all tied to that regional reload facility. So that'd be something like, having a centralized transfer station or something like that where all the trucks go to dump out all their plastic bottles or cardboard boxes or whatever. Then those all get packaged up, put on a rail car or on a highway truck or something like that and hauled off to a different market. And so whether or not we have something like that, that has a big impact on things like the truck type or the truck size. If that collection truck is just having to run around in town and then do something like right now, go out to the transfer facility that sanitary disposal has between Hermiston and Umatilla, that's a different type of truck versus if it has to go, make a 2 hour round trip every day to take it to some other reload facility or something like that. Additionally, if you're spending 2 hours of travel time hauling it back and forth, that does end up having an impact on the number of collection trucks that you need, because if you've only got one driver that's working on an 8 hour shift and they got to spend 20% of their time driving all the way out back and forth to the reload facility, you may end up needing more trucks than if it was a shorter travel time to get it out to that reload facility. So that has a big impact on, what equipment we even begin to order. And then as we've talked previously, we understand that the ordering time on getting new trucks and those types of things is lengthy, over a year possibly from between the time you order a truck and by the time you get it. And then additionally, I don't think it can be understated either, how long it would take to actually site, design, and construct a reload facility. So all that's to say, July 1st of 2025 is the deadline that the RMA has for us. Everything that we're hearing from DEQ is that as long as we're showing progress toward meeting that timeline, that's probably not a hard and fast timeline for us, but we're going to do our best as we can to keep moving that direction. So, and Kevin is here to answer any questions. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Morgan. I genuinely appreciate your professional opinion and timelines that you can give us on this. Um, with that, in your professional opinion, we're talking about reload stations. Is that more of a venture, a couple of cities, West Umatilla County, Umatilla County? How does that look like right now?
Yeah, so again, sanitary disposal is really our solid waste provider. And so since they provide solid waste to all of the regional communities here, it would almost certainly be going through sanitary disposal if that was the case. And so, we're not their only customer. And so we would really be working with sanitary disposal on that.
for each one of you, or it can even be answered. But, okay, so what would our cost be without the manufacturer kick in there? So that maybe we can see if it's real?
Yeah, so I have no idea is the short answer. And so I left that slide off at the end. I mean, that was kind of where we were leading to, but the point being, we know of all the variables that are included, about the only one we know is that we're going to have to do this. And so we don't know how much revenue is going to be coming in from the PRO. We don't know what our costs are going to be. Because again, we don't know if the PRO is going to help cover a reload facility. If they're not, that sends it down a whole other rabbit hole of how we would actually implement this. And so that was kind of the point where I was going there is, without knowing those, we can't really get into even trying to come up with a cost until we get there.
What their buy-in really is. See if they are, if it's real and if they're really helping.
Yeah. And I'm sure that we'll be able to identify that number once we get into the details and see what our cost is going to be. We'll be able to segregate out their portion.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like trucks. Have automated trucks. Single truck. And I just ordered 700 to 96 gallon first. Not that's right now. We go a whole year and we kind of move it.
So we're not the only ones that are doing this. There are other cities that are comparably sized and rural in nature. What are their costs? Do we know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. LeGrand is about the only one of the ones I can think of that.
Either one. I mean, I'm because
That already does it.
know,
Already
we
does
know this is going to cost. We know this is going to cost our citizens. Us knowing a little bit, giving them some kind of lead time as to how much this is going to be. Unlike this last rate hike that we did, we kind of came out of nowhere, and so giving them some kind of lead time of knowing how much this is possibly going to impact them, is going to be very beneficial to our citizens.
Yeah, I think that by July, once the pros have their piece in, they're gonna let us know kind of what they're gonna pay for. I think we'll have a better estimate of kind of where it's gonna land. Right now, it's just, the target's moving, but we're getting to the point where, this Thursday, leaving them out, I think we're gonna kind of put some periods at the end of the sentences.
I
I guess positive that Hermiston, I think, the biggest community in the state of Oregon, does not have curbside recycling. So that's a benefit that I'm assuming that there will be more money coming here because of that. And Boardman and the city of Matilda are the other two.
Yeah, and I think additionally, one thing that we'll all become experts on mix and matching our garbage and recycling services. But, one thing to keep in mind too, just as an example, like for my house with a 5-person household, we got a 90-gallon cart and a 35-gallon cart. And so, when we start to be able to be recycling and pulling some of those materials out and going into a recycling container, some people may, shrink down their garbage service, or not have 2 carts. They may go down to a 35-gallon cart and only have recycling in a 35-gallon cart. So a lot of it's going to depend on people's individual situations as to how much that impacts them.
Okay.
Talking about the shared revenue projections, so we've got 6 to potentially 12 months before we know what that number is going to be, but we also have to get this installed by 14 months. So we're just
Yeah.
good chance we're just not going to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the point that I was getting at with DEQs being pretty lenient with us on that implementation date because they recognize those challenges that we have. And so, and also I think maybe to Councilor Primer's point, my hope is that, even if we're not going to know what this actual cost is going to look like for 6 to 8 months, it's not going to be something where, okay, now we know what it is and boom, we're implementing this rate 2 months later. So my hope is that if we don't know those numbers until February, March next year, we're not actually going to start rolling this out until, I mean, potentially the following year. I mean, realistically, if we don't have trucks in place. So my hope is that we're going to have significantly more time after July 1st to actually implement this.
Okay. Ms. Durham?
So this is for curbside recycling.
Yes.
If a customer then does not want to do the curbside, that will be an option in case they want to go to the transfer station and drop off their recyclables.
I,
Doing this for 30. So for us, we're in this question. Maintenance of the trucks after this goes through, right?
So by doing this, then we will be able to recycle a lot more things like those gallon containers. Yes, all the plastics.
I think the only thing that probably won't see on the curb is apps. I know that in the west side of the state, they do it at the curb, but I think they're gonna slowly transition to a depot for the glass because, picking up commingles that have everything in the cart and then you have to have a separate compartment for the glass just makes the trucks pretty inefficient because you end up filling up the glass compartment before you do the main body of the trucks. There's gonna be, there's so much stuff that DEQ is requiring of the pros that some of the, like the depots that we have now, I personally don't think that we're gonna have like paper, cardboard and stuff like that there. That'll all be the curb. I think the depots will be more of the hard recycling materials, some plastics, not like milk cartons, but some of the harder plastics or the clamshells that to go food comes in.
And how do you foresee that? Because some of those items can be pretty bulky. So does that mean that people will need to like smash them down so that they're able to fit as much as possible in their cart?
Yeah, and that, for it curbside you talked about, most of the time, as long as everybody can break it down in cardboard boxes, normal family of four can get away with a 96-gallon cart week to a week and a half. So, and even if they do have extra, taking the cardboard, tying it in a bundle and laying it on the side of the cart.
Thank you.
Just a note, I've received a couple of requests from people watching online that they can't hear a couple people at the microphone, so I don't know if they're on or not, but I've had at least 2 people ask.
Did they mention any names?
Who is
No
it?
comment.
Still have, sorry.
Go ahead.
Will we still have, the, recycle bins like they have, over on Theater Lane or where, Gear Road?
I think what they'll be for the hard to recycle items that can't go into the cart. And I think that's what that's gonna be. So there has to be somewhat of an end market for some of these materials. So, but that's gonna be up to the producer pro, and DEQ that tells us, okay, these are the, few materials that are gonna be accepted at the depot.
So going back to your earlier statement about oversized items and being tied and left. Now, will that incur an additional charge like you do when the lid isn't completely closed on a garbage can? Okay.
So from my understanding, and again, thank you for sharing this update. It's merely an update because we don't really have a lot of revenue projections just yet. And so until we get those, we don't really know exactly what we're doing, but we're looking at every possible option to be prepared for whatever's going to come down the pike. Is that right?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yeah. Mainly wanted to keep it in front of the council so that, because it's been a long process.
Yeah. I appreciate staff's work. I appreciate everyone that's done a lot of work on this. Honestly, this reminds me of the real ID and having to continue to renew it over and over again. So we might be in that process where we're, showing what we have so far and pushing it out a little bit and until we're ready. And I agree with what Councilor Bremer has said. It's really important for the citizens to know what's coming down the pike. So as soon as we can receive some projections, that'd be great to share with the council. So I appreciate the presentation.
And I think some of the discussion this evening also kind of highlighted, I think one of the big components for our region also is going to be on the recycling education side of things, because a lot of folks have questions just here, and we've been talking about this already for a while. So I think there's going to have to be quite a good upfront investment in outreach and education, because one of the routine terms that always gets used in recycling area is that contamination turns recycling into trash. So if somebody puts something that's not recyclable into the recycling bin, you've automatically made that trash because you have to dump it, and it screws up the entire system. So unless we do a lot of work on the upfront side of things to educate people about, okay, this is your recycling bin, here's what can go into it, here's what should go into it, here's why you should just put it in a bundle next to the cart rather than putting something else in that isn't recyclable. So that's going to be a big effort, I think, and something that will be rolling out significantly.
Any other questions? All right, well, that was a lot of good information. We do definitely need to keep us aware of things as they progress as it relates to the costs, because that's the ultimate question that everybody is going to want to know is, it's not about what's going to be recycled, what's going to be there, what's it going to cost us. And so the sooner we can provide that information to them, I think the better. So, thank you, sir. Appreciate your assistance. Yes. Yes, we do. Yeah, okay. All right. Anything further on that? Okay. Appears you have added something here on next, the council rules review.
Yes, so we knew we would have a little bit of time. We weren't sure exactly how much, so we wanted to kind of reintroduce reviewing the council rules that we started a number of months ago and kind of got interrupted by some more intense budget discussions. So in front of you, you should have received a hard copy of the where we're at. And what I thought I would do tonight is just we would go back over the initial stuff that we talked about a number of months ago and just make sure and kind of clarify some of the research that we've done, and then kind of prime us to kind of start digging in about where we left off, which was after the first two sections of that. But I'm going to start off with just kind of going back and reviewing again where we started. So we had quite a little bit of discussion the first time about rules of order and whether Robert's rules or could we use something else. And Mr. Tubby was doing some research on this and found that not as many people use Robert's rules as we thought. There's a lot of the legislative bodies around the country, our House and Senate at the national level, neither one of them do. They both have their own rules. And then even our state legislature doesn't use Roberts. They use their own. And Can you read that, what, that you found in the, in that open, in the public records or?
All right. Well, nope, that's not gonna work. I got too much stuff. Let me pull this closer. All right, so just as I was researching and we've talked about it, one of the resources that I went to was the Oregon Department of Justice. They put out a public meetings manual. And so just going through that, they do have a section talking about parliamentary procedure. And let's see. So, and they just provide some guidance. And the manual says to facilitate decision-making, a simplified and flexible approach to parliamentary procedure is helpful. The author of one text on parliamentary procedure believes that stressing a more straightforward and open procedure for meetings eliminates the parliamentary impasses that appear to follow when too much attention is given to parliamentary intrigue and manipulation. He has, for example, eliminated the seconding of motions because it's largely a waste of time. This warning against blind adherence to parliamentary rules is echoed by the author of another text who admonishes that technical rules should be used only to the extent necessary to observe the law, to expedite business, to avoid confusion, and to protect the rights of members. It goes on to say the most commonly known and used parliamentary authority is Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. However, a more readable authority is Alice Sturgis's Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. The Oregon House and Senate rely on Paul Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. Any of these texts could be adopted by reference to guide board, commission, or council deliberations. And then it goes on to provide a little bit more information about how to go forward with different actions. And they say, alternatively, a board, commission, or council might adapt some of the rules to suit its particular needs and convenience and adopt a standard text as backup, as a backup resource.
So even when we proposed the original, which was a set of rules called Rosenberg's, just because I found it through the League of California Cities, I think I didn't realize that there were so many other options. And so, and like that last paragraph he read, just, I mean, we could set up kind of a simple basic set of rules and then have choose one of these as a backup if we wanted to. So I think there's a lot more options, and we didn't kind of dig into any kind of thought about what might be the best among all those options, but just recognizing that there might be some other options for us as we look at adopting a set of rules of order for the council.
Mr. McCarthy?
Just a question. As of right now, have we adopted Robert's rules as our current rules of order, or has that been basically a guideline for how to operate within our current code of ordinances?
Well, it has been adopted as our code. I would just say that we probably haven't been following it to the letter. Just would be my observation. And so that's why a discussion about finding something a little more simple, straightforward might be useful as we look going forward. Okay. One of the things I'm just going to point out, a little while ago, we had a little bit of a discussion about whether, and this has actually come up more than once in the time that I've been here, the night that we hold our meetings. Monday night, it's the same night as the school board. Is that something we want to change so that we can, allow the public to come to both if they wanted to address a subject at both? A lot of those circumstances don't come up. I mean, honestly, the discussion we had about marijuana, the school board canceled their meeting so that they could come and participate. So there are things. So I just throw that out there as we go through this again. If that's something the council wants to talk about, happy to look at that. I mean, could we look at, I think they do second and fourth. What if we did first and third? Is that gonna keep the conflict away enough that people could attend both if they wanted to? Something like that. So that's in this first section. That's the only, or actually in the second section. As I was going through that this afternoon, I thought about just mentioning that. And then if we turn to the fourth page, a couple of things that we made changes, you'll see them, they're in blue. This is special meetings. We looked at, just because of the number of members of the council, instead of having 2 that would request a special meeting, have it be 3. And we put that in there just because that's kind of been a common item in other areas. Then in section 11 there on emergency meetings, you guys wanted us to find a better definition of what's an emergency meeting, just because so-and-so didn't get their permit or whatever isn't necessarily make it an emergency kind of thing. So the blue highlighted language in there gives a kind of a better definition for why you would want to have an emergency meeting. And then if you turn to the next page, you take a look at meetings open to the public and serial communications. One of the things that we added a 5th paragraph in there, just to talk about more social situations. Just to, I think in our community, you guys end up at gatherings, community events, different things that aren't meetings, but you might be 5 or, a quorum of the council. And so just a warning to make sure to not discuss city business when there's a group of a quorum of the council. So that was something that we talked about wanting to add. Right.
Like riding in the back of the truck during a parade.
Right. Yeah. And
we have 2 trucks. Yeah, we don't talk about city business while we're throwing candy at each other. Yeah.
And then one thing that there's a note in there, a comment that we need to go through the whole document and clarify when there's counselors, all of that, members of the council. So we use the same term throughout the document. We haven't done that, but there's a note just to remind us to do that. And then the last one, I believe it was Councilor Primer brought up, just for canceling a meeting, who has the ability to do that, and wanted to talk again about whether that should be the council or should be in here. In the current rules, it says the mayor, or in consultation with the city manager, would cancel a meeting. And so if the council wanted to change who did that. So we've marked that so we can make sure to address it before we finish going through and kind of finalizing the document. But I just wanted to do a quick review. We just covered these first 2 sections of the rules, and then just based on our schedule, it looks like probably the second meeting in June, we'll get back into kind of looking in more detail, and we'll start with the 3rd section, which starts talking about the agenda of the meeting and how it's put together and how it functions. So with that, I'd be happy to talk about any questions or go through anything specific about the subjects or, the topics of the first 2 sections, if you have anything.
There's some question about who could put things on the agenda.
Yeah, that will get, as we go into the 3rd section, we've suggested some language about how that would be done.
Okay.
On that note, since we talked about canceling or adjourning meetings in this, I would like just a quick refresher on circumstances where we could move to adjourn in case that could come up. I recently saw like a compilation of hectic city council meeting kind of thing on YouTube, and somebody did that, and it's like, wonder what that means for us if something were to, it was a particularly toxic situation, but I'd like to have that education.
Yeah, so I think that probably is not so much, that would be in the rules of order, I think more in the rules of order of when and how you would use a motion to adjourn. And so we can definitely talk about that when we get to that section.
Right?
What's that? Can we try it?
I see. At the moment, we can't do that, right? Okay, no.
Thought,
Okay. Any other thoughts on this?
And we'll email, if you want, we'll email a electronic copy of this if you want to use that rather than something to write on. I didn't know what you would prefer, so.
Yeah, if you can put it like on a PDF that's markable,
Okay,
that would be,
we do that.
that would be helpful because I scribble notes all over everything. I've got sheets of paper laying all around the house. That's the only way
Yeah.
I keep track, and my lovely wife there tries to make order of my disorder, so that would be helpful.
All right, that's all we had for our work session.
All right, so is there anybody else has anything for the work session? All right, we'll re-adjourn in 15 minutes. Well, we'll reconvene.
Convene.
Thank you.
There we
All right, we might re-adjourn, who knows? Jackie said. Okay, all right. Oh, Lord. Okay, let's see, minus. Let's see. All right. Everybody ready? All right. Going to call the regular city council meeting to order. Declaration of a quorum. We are missing obviously the mayor and Councilor Peterson will not be here and Ms. Linton may be late, so we'll see them. At this time, can you join me in the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody, to today's council session. We started out the evening with a city manager council work session on Plastic and Recycling Modernization Act, which is coming to a curbside near you sometime in the near future. So we're going to be refining that as time progresses, and so news as it applies. We also talked a little bit about the council rules being reviewed and had a short discussion on that. So these are some of the things that's going on in the future. So as of today, we have some presentations, and it looks as though we have a presentation of the Civic Leadership Academy. Mr. Smith, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I'd like to just do a quick introduction of the program and what our goals were, and then we're going to turn over time to the participants and they'll give you a presentation. So 4 or 5 years ago, I was at a conference and there was a presentation about leadership programs, community leadership programs, and one of the presenters was a professor or a representative of Portland State University and talking about a program that they had developed in conjunction with the city of Hillsborough. And it was just very intriguing. It was not a typical community leadership program like I'd seen in a lot of other places. And so I started talking with them, started talking with the city of Hillsborough. Time went, COVID came, all kinds of things. And so as we were kind of talking again just recently, they approached me because they had stated that the Ford Family Foundation was looking for a way to kind of help some of this leadership type training get out into the more rural parts of the state. And so that really started up a partnership. And so tonight I just want to recognize Kristen Wright from Portland State University. She was the main faculty person and did a lot of the training. And then Laura Isidoria, she's over here from the Ford Family Foundation. And just to, their financial contribution to this program helped it make it work for us to be able to do that. And so I also want to thank quickly, the participants will recognize their city buddies, but we have Nate and Lily, and then Crystal also helped as kind of resources as they worked on their question, which was to how do we improve community engagement in the city of Hermiston. And with that, I'll turn it over to the group.
Lily, can you bring up our presentation?
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I was going to wait until it got brought up there, but yeah, that works perfect. Good evening, council members. My name is Adam Huxell, and I am one of 8 members of the Hermiston Civic Leadership Academy. The 8 of us started this journey over 6 weeks ago as individuals with a common goal of strengthening our community. a community that we truly feel is something special. We stand before you as members of this community, united by a common duty and a profound respect for the goals and values that bind us. Collectively, we make up a diverse group of very different walks of life, yet we come together with hope to achieve something greater than ourselves. When we were first made aware of the issue that the city had put before us, many of us had the same question: why? Why are we being tasked with fostering a stronger sense of community in Hermiston? After all, I hit the snooze button on Tuesday mornings. I get mad at my kids for not picking up their shoes, and I frequently eat an extra piece of cheesecake. But you don't have to be perfect to make a difference. And through this group's time together, it became clear. With our diverse views and our common values, we are the exact group to connect with our community members and learn where we are missing our mark. Oh. Next. Next one, please. It was expressed to us that the city has noticed a decline in not only attendance at city council meetings, but an overall lack of interest from the community. The question was asked, how do we change this? This question was at the heart of city leadership when this Hermiston Civic Leadership Academy was formed. After refinement, we were tasked with exploring how the city can foster a stronger sense of community in Hermiston. We quickly found out that answering this question was much more complicated than we had expected. We have learned that the city has implemented a large number of strategies, and there may not be one silver bullet. However, we have listened and attuned ourselves to the desires of our neighbors. Together, we are a united voice that embodies the diversity of our community. And as we prepare to present our research to the council, we invite you to consider that the essence of community springs from making space instead of merely allowing space. By actively making space, the city can demonstrate their commitment to embracing diversity, encouraging innovation, and ensuring equitable access for all members of our city. Let's not just stand by and passively permit space to exist, but rather proactively create environments where everyone can thrive and contribute to the collective well-being of our community. Next up to explain the process of how we came to our considerations is Dustin Kelly.
Thank you, Adam.
Hi, I'm Dustin Kelly. Thanks for hearing our presentation today. I'll talk about the process. We conducted interviews and discussions within the community. The group selected members of the community to include residents and business owners. We made it a point to gather unbiased but diverse perspective. We did this by asking unbiased, standardized questions, avoid using leading words that may sway the response positively or negatively, and then we used questions that were phrased objectively. We also asked questions that were fact-based, not opinion-based, and when we asked a question, we stuck to one topic at a time. In the information we gathered, we made it a point to not represent any single demographic. Demographics include age, gender, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. Demographics may also include the stability or transient nature of the population, such as the length of residency. Next is Riley with key points.
Thanks, Dustin.
Through the process of our interviews, we found that each part of our community had different needs and values. In the Hermiston community, we currently have a demographic of around 51% Hispanic Latino population to the 44% white population, yet there exists a disparity of accessibility of language spoken. There are currently limited translation service options for public events, written translated documents, or live translators. Another consideration is that of the availability of community members themselves. Something commonly mentioned throughout the course of the conducted interviews was the availability to attend or participate in events. Being able to attend and participate hinges on overcoming the barrier presented by means of time constraints and familial duties, another highly represented demographic in Hermiston community. Engagement levels within the community are on differing levels depending on the age range. We see some parts that would care for no communication except via social media, while others would only like to hear updates through written or verbal communication, identifying this sweet spot, so to speak. is how to reach the community itself. During interviews, a common theme that kept coming up was the feeling of being unheard and having a distrust for all local government. As we pried deeper into this issue, the root cause came in large from police interactions. It was very apparent that the community sees the police department as an extension of city government. Interviewees explained that in years past, there had been a lot of abuses and injustices committed against the minority community. They felt as if they had been targeted and oppressed due to racism. This has fueled a toxic relationship between the marginalized community, the police, and the city. As a result of these injustices and racist sentiment had added towards gang violence and crime, mostly going unreported. The minority community feels strongly that this relationship continues today. Although they have seen some improvement in frivolously being pulled over, they believe that is only due to officer staffing issues. Interviewees went on to explain that they stopped reporting crimes because they were not getting any answers nor police responses to crimes that were being committed. One interviewer stated, "Why call the police? They might show up. If they do, they might take a report, but they probably won't do anything about it. It's just easier if I handle this myself." Another stated, "Even though we are losing our children and family members to the horrible opioid problem and gangs, they act as that's not going on here and refuse to talk about it. But we see it every day in the parks and street corners and hear about it all the shootings. If they can't be honest and are willing to cover up problems as big as these, why are they going to be honest with me about anything else? I mean, we're burying our children and our friends' children. It just proves that they don't care about us, let alone what we think." Broken relationships is the reality for over 50% of our community, leading to so many to fear the consequences of simple outreach and how it has lasting legal repercussions. An example of this broken relationship is reflected among the Hispanic business owners in Hermiston. When the Hispanic Business Network was launched, it brought with it a promise of unity, support, and growth for our local Hispanic business owners. This initiative was widely advertised through newspapers and social media, creating a hopeful buzz among our entrepreneurs. These business owners, many of whom do not speak English fluently, saw this network as a beacon of hope, a platform to not only enhance their businesses, but to also integrate more effectively into the broader community. They invested their hard-earned money into memberships, believing in the vision that was presented to them. However, the reality that they faced was far from the promises made. After a few initial meetings and a collection of membership fees, the Hispanic Business Network ceased all communication with the business owners. As a result, they felt abandoned, left without the support that they were promised. This not only hurt financially, but eroded their trust in community initiatives meant to aid in community growth and integration. People want to be part of the conversation, to be part of the community and feel as if their input is not only being heard, but valued and implemented. Next up with our considerations is Martha.
Thank you, Riley.
There are three major issues that we encountered, which are trust, education and information, and time. So to begin with trust, how might we demonstrate, and this is a question for all of you, how might we demonstrate our desire for input from the underrepresented community members to build buy-in, gain trust, and strengthen the common values that bond us together? Hoy les vamos a hablar sobre cómo nosotros podemos demostrarles a ustedes que nos importa su voz. Today, we're going to speak to you about how we can demonstrate that we value your voice. So some of you understood what I just said and some of you did not. Those of you who did not finally understood when I was able to translate it for you. I wanted to demonstrate to you, all of you, that I value your perspectives. I wanted to make sure that the information that I possessed was made available to you and accessible to you. I valued your input, so I made space. So we must think about the language that we use. And does it translate well? Does it make sense for people who are lacking secondary education? Plain language is also necessary in our government. So consider this. Make information accessible in multiple languages across multiple platforms. We can show we value our community members' perspectives by increasing access to city information. This includes the use of all major social media outlets, including Instagram, Facebook, X, Snapchat, TikTok. Let's build a city app, right? So social media is a perfect, tangible example of how we can make space. Speaking of space, another tangible way we can make space is our city website. So let's have our webpage also in Spanish. These are only a few ways that we can make space or space can be made. We need to show our community members, especially those who are underrepresented in city leadership, that we have or that they have a place in city government. There was an example that came up a couple times during our interview process, and it's something really simple, and it's just basic customer service. So the people that we are encountering every day, those of us who represent the city, how do people interact with us? How do we interact with them? Our office staff, our police staff, our planning and zoning department staff, right? How are these people interacting with the community members? Again, it starts with those of us who represent the city in any capacity. By making things accessible, we are demonstrating that we value those we want to reach. Of course, not all of those who read our information will always be able to understand what we are trying to say. Nobody ever complains about the government being easy to understand. So that's what brings me up to my next point, which is the importance of education. We discovered that education is a key factor to engagement. So education and information. So in what ways can you, the city or city council, reach out to the public with educational information to motivate the public to care and also create interest in participation? Again, we need these things to be accessible. That means the information that we provide needs to be succinct in multiple languages and available where the community members are, because education builds motivation. People don't get involved in things they don't care about or that they don't understand. For example, if you don't understand the language I'm speaking to you in, you're not going to engage. You're not going to know to care. But how do we show people that their interests impact civic engagement? Those of you who's involved in youth sports, who cares if a helipad is going to be put in their backyard, right? So we need to show people that we have departments, Parks and Rec, the planning and zoning department, the city police, that we have all these different departments that are accessible to them. We need to make city leadership relatable and human and show how everyday people can see themselves in these roles. Maybe we share a campaign around why civic leaders got engaged. Why did you get engaged to civic leadership? Do we have a coffee with a counselor campaign? We also need to make leadership more visible overall. When we have events in the city of Hermiston, let's try to wear some t-shirts, some name tags, or something that shows who who the change makers are and how they can help. So what type of educational programs can be offered to the public regarding how the city works and how to attend such programs? So for example, there's us, right? We're the Civic Leadership Academy members. The city saw a need, they made space, they recognized barriers, and they provided solutions. For example, babysitting, I really needed that, thank you. Dinners, I'm sure we all appreciated the wonderful food that we were provided. Rides were made available as well. So barriers were recognized and they overcame them because they wanted us to engage. But maybe it's not a Civic Leadership Academy like this one, but it only continues to drive home our token phrase of the night, make space. So how do we make space? How do we teach? How do we consider the time it takes to truly foster engagement? Time. We make information easily accessible. It's a common theme, make everything accessible. We're trying to tell you a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time because we know that you also have an agenda and we want to be respectful of that and be respectful of your time. A lot of folks in the town after doing our interviews stated that they received a bunch of information and they felt like it was a bunch of information that they didn't care about. But there were also members who said that they didn't receive any information at all. That is a huge disparity to access of information. And it's not enough to have all the information in one place. That's just a starting point. So how do we make space? If we know most people drive down 395, why not add events to the reader board at the community center or even add a reader board in a different point? How do we make space? How do we leverage local successful social media presences to help gain views and build Maybe build an app that I mentioned earlier. How do we make space? We need to go where the people are and share information with them in their preferred method. Can people join from home? Can they choose the time or level of engagement? How do we make space? Do we have ways for different communities to showcase their cultural knowledge? For example, topics that include language, faith, heritage, and if not, how do we build those things? How do we make space? These are all ways to bring people in that require little to no effort and a little bit of time, but it allows them to be involved in the things that matter to them. Everyone benefits from making our existing programs more flexible and creative. And with that, I would like to introduce to you Luz, who will finish it up from here.
Thank you.
In closing, I am Luz Martel, one of the 8 devoted members of the Hermiston Civic Leadership Academy. Over the past 6 weeks, we have embarked on a transformative journey fueled by an unwavering commitment to forge a stronger, more inclusive community. We have evolved from individuals with a shared vision into a unified team deeply attuned to the heartbeat of our community. Today, we stand before you, united by the voices and stories of our neighbors. Throughout our journey, we have uncovered a profound truth that fostering a stronger sense of community requires more than simply allowing space. It demands actively creating space. This means cultivating environments where diversity is not merely tolerated but celebrated, where innovation thrives and where equitable access becomes a tangible reality for everyone. Our research has highlighted the urgent need for improved translation services, flexible participation options, and diverse communication channels to genuinely reach all members of our community. We have heard the resounding call for trust and transparency. Our community yearns to be seen, to be heard, and valued. They need to believe that their participation matters, that it can drive real change. This calls for city leadership, a city leadership that is visible, that is approachable, accountable, and profoundly responsive to the needs of its people. As we conclude our presentation, we call on you, the City Council members, to act decisively and continuously. This endeavor demands unwavering commitment, broaden access to information, utilize multiple languages and formats, and engage with the community in spaces where they feel comfortable and connected. They need to know that their involvement is not only welcomed, but essential in shaping the future of Hermiston. Meet them where they are, respecting the value they place on their time and input. Let us build a Hermiston where every voice is heard, where every individual feels that they truly belong, and where genuine input shapes our deliberations. We do not want their input to be merely a collection of voices or false consensus. Together, let us ensure that our community is harmonious, a harmonious chorus where real contributions matter and drive our collective future. On behalf of the Hermiston Civic Leadership Academy, we thank you, the esteemed members of our City Council, for your time and dedication to the city of Hermiston, where life really is sweet.
People, that was impressive. That was a very impressive piece of work, and you've definitely given us something to work on. We've got a direction to go, and quite frankly, I hope to see at least a few of you up here sometime in the future. You will make a difference, and you made a difference today. So I thank you and I applaud you all.
Lily has a copy of the presentation if anybody wants one.
Excellent. We would love that. Lily, would you make that available to all of us, please? Mr. McCarthy.
Just want to congratulate all of you. I know I sat in on the last regular meeting you guys had, and some things went directions I didn't anticipate. So I was excited to be surprised that way. You guys did a great job. I also want to mention that June 5th is the first day you may file your completed declaration of candidacy form, SEL 101. Just speak to Lily. So that's coming up in about a week. So there you go. There will be potentially 4 seats available for city council. Just need to live in the city limits.
Roy?
We were told that if you guys had questions, that we're open for questions as well about like the research we did or the interviews that we performed or anything like that. So we're here. If you guys have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Now or in the future.
I do, because I was part of the Latino Business Network that you mentioned, and I know that although not everything is perfect, we certainly look to improve, but I think this is a perfect reason why an academy was created. We're very interested in bringing new leaders on board because even for running for mayor, for councilors, you see that there's not a huge amount. I think it takes maybe breaking down barriers, as you mentioned. But I was just curious, which businesses did you guys?
There was several. There was a couple on Main Street, a couple of food businesses, and then actually the family member of the original person who started the.
Okay. It's interesting because, oh, sorry. Yeah. I think it's always important to go back to the businesses to get their sense of ideas that, the city can do better. Because one of the things that as the Latino Business Network members, we were tasked to go and visit and talk to the business, owners or whoever was in charge at the time to talk about some of the things that the chamber offered and what we could do. And honestly, there was little interest at that time. And it could deal with that some of the local small businesses, the owner is pretty much the custodian, the cashier, everything. So it's hard to get away and see the value of things. But, I look forward to maybe knowing more ideas that maybe they might have shared as to how we can target the businesses so that they feel like part of the city because, there's a lot that I think the chamber can contribute, a lot of grants that were made available, especially like during COVID and things like that. And so whenever I'm out and about, I never say, well, I'm a city councilor because I like to just go and be myself when I go to a business. But I always try to like put the plug in and explain to people some of the perks of maybe being part of a chamber. But it's interesting to me to hear some of the feedback because I think also some of our community members also don't know so many things that the city has attempted to try to engage the community where we've recorded videos, at the end of our meetings in English and Spanish so that we could get more views on social media. And I think based on the feedback that we received from the city, we didn't really get a lot of views. Now, talking about government topics is not really sexy. It's not really, it's not going to drive a lot of people there, but we've made so many attempts. But I think if you guys had any ideas and it could be shared with the city manager and Lily, I think some of those ideas could be looked at and see how we can improve.
For those ideas today here, because I think one of the assumptions that's made is that some of these business owners, because they have are educated, but the reality is that they don't have business degrees. They just start these businesses and they're doing well, but also, assuming that they also read the Spanish language or that they read the English language is another, assumption. So that again, like our presentation, I think highlights that bigger thing. And then also time. I mean, they shared with us that they are competing with, Walmart and they're competing now with Marshalls. And so therefore they have to have longer opening hours because for them, and so they also have to sell things at a higher price point because they are,
local. So that's something to take into consideration. So all of these things that we brought forth today, such as time, making time is, reflects them too, because they have to work so many hours and, if you schedule a meeting on a certain day, they can't come. But also, education information that's shared is also very relevant to them, making it accessible. And so, yeah, and then, lastly, very difficult to realize that the broken relationship, I think that's the best way to start mending that and hopefully getting some engagement. They were not very specific about time, when this kind of just started to drop off. So we don't know all that. We had a list of standardized questions that we asked the community when we approached them. So, we had some conversations, but a lot of it was pretty much around these so that we could have tangible data.
Yeah. And that's why I think having the cultural center at the library, when it gets remodeled, I think it'll be great to have so many resources available, not just to community members, but business partners as well, where they can get the education about how to budget and how to start their business, how to maintain their business, how to do marketing and all of those pieces. And that is something that the city has been talking about for a while. So I look forward to the day when that can happen. And I think a lot of the community members will feel like they are part of the city, because that's what we want. So thank you for your time.
Roy?
Thank you again for your presentation, Civic Leadership Academy. Honestly, there was a lot to unpack for me. I really can't wait to, go back and look at it. And I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about your interviews and how you guys went about, I guess, choosing the things that you highlighted. Quite honestly, a lot of the things that you mentioned, just as a person living in this community, I've heard. And so, hearing that again, as a counselor, there are times when we hear things in the community. And to be honest, just like you were saying, I guess to take a step back, when you were talking about relationships, I mean, all this is built on relationships, trust, and what people feel is their reality at the end of the day. And so what's incumbent, I feel like on elected officials specifically is being in government, seeing what's going on in government, seeing how things are running, and to be able to share that back with community members on, what is the truth, what is not the truth. Because we see things, or we even have personal experiences that happen to us. But understanding why things happen is really important. For an example, I used to work in the court, and when people would come to the court, people wouldn't really understand what was going on. There's so many different motions, so many different things happening. It was really hard to understand what everything is going on, unless you really knew what was going on and be able to explain it. So I really appreciate what you guys said about, being able to communicate to the public in layman's terms. But there is so much that needs to be done to continue building and earning trust from the community. And that being said, I think it is incumbent on a lot of us as counselors or elected officials, that when we do hear something from the community, that we try to either, engage with the community on that, whether something is true or not, or I guess what the source is of what may be happening. I think that's really where the communication piece comes from us. And so I would like to meet and to have conversation, because you guys did a lot of, digging and searching and talking in community, and a lot of people have valid feelings about, what's been going on. And I think, when we do get to these positions, and just like a lot of counselors were saying, we hope that some of you guys do decide to run. But when some of you guys are here, or in whatever leadership position that might be, whether it's council, in your own organization, or wherever that might be, it's really, it's important for us to be able to disseminate, what's going on, to either validate things that are going on, or to dispel and to make sure that the community is educated and engaged. But that takes people, doing the action, doing the engagement, building those relationships, building that trust. I think we could still be better at that. Absolutely. But I appreciate your guys' presentation.
Mr. Primer? I just wanted to let you know that they've done a lot more than what they presented. I mean, we gave them 15 minutes, and so there's
Right.
a lot of research and work, and they've allowed us to have access to a lot of their notes and things like that that we can go back to. And so, my anticipation is that, in a month or so that staff would come back with some thoughts and reactions and game plans of how we might try to address some of the topics that they've brought forward.
I would hope that that would be the case because, communication is a two-way street and I do believe that, that some of those things that, they do beg to be answered, both from the opposite, from our side of our view as well, because, what may be the view of the person on the street isn't, they're seeing this much of the big picture. When we sit up here, it's, we'll just bring the budget as a part of things, it's not a matter of, you have this big pile of money and you can use it any way you want. Each one of those dollars has to be spent in a specific manner, and we have to be careful on how we do that. So that's, and some of the people that out there don't see that as how it is. And so, yes, that's part of our job is to, to educate them in that respect, but also at the same time, they need to also come to us as well and bring those concerns to us so that we can address them. And, sometimes it is, it's just a simple conversation. And I love the idea of coffee with a counselor. And that's a great idea in all honesty. So, all right, well.
Yeah, we'd like to do a little recognition for them.
Okay.
And I'd also like to invite one of our other partners in this, Val from the chamber, if you'd come up and help me.
So yeah, just as as Mr. Smith is getting up here to get ready for this, I do want to take time to thank everybody that was involved in this, specifically the city people as well. Specifically, since I forgot to mention him at one point in time, Mr. Yeah, that guy. Nate. Since I didn't mention Nate's name one time, I forgot about it and I feel bad. I felt bad ever since.
And I think there were a couple of the members that weren't able to be here tonight, and so we have things for them as well. I'll go ahead and announce their names as well, but get there. So Jesse Roa, who's one that's not here tonight. And I think everybody stay up here so we get a picture of you guys. Dustin Kelly.
All right, David, you're missing your cue.
Adam Hustle. Stephanie Hughes. Yeah, she's not here tonight. And we marked up.
That is exciting. There's so much information there that I can't wait to have us all talk about. All right, next up on the agenda. Okay, next is our citizen input on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to bring anything before the council that is not on the agenda is asked to please do the following. Please limit your comments to not more than 5 minutes. State your name and address and direct your comments to me here in the chair. Is there anybody that wishes to bring anything forward? Seeing none. Next is the consent agenda items. Are there any items that need to be removed by the council? Seeing none, are there any council comments on consent agenda items A through E? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on consent agenda items A through E? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. And roll call.
Yes.
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 And motion passes. And as a reminder, as council president, I'm still a member of the council, so I get to vote, unlike when I'm not. I will miss that. All right, no items are removed. Resolution 2323, award contract for lift station number 4 reconstruction, City Manager Smith.
Yes, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, council, this evening, we're going to be awarding the contract for lift station number 4 reconstruction. Lift station number 4, for those of you who have a map, I don't have one up there this evening, but it's on Ridgeway Avenue near Butte, over near Rocky Heights Elementary vicinity. So that sewer lift station drains that entire area. That lift station's 43 years old now. It was built in 1981. Significant corrosion down in that lift station on all of the metal, brick, as well as replacement needs on all of the electrical systems, venting, all that type of thing. That project and the need for that replacement's been on our radar for quite some time. It was included on the first capital improvement plan back in 2019. We pushed it back a couple of times because of the cost overrun associated with lift station number 3. So I'm happy that we're finally able to get this one out to bid. We got the bids out and opened them last week. We received 2 bids, with the low bid being C&E Trenching for $608,000. We've done a lot of work with them in the past. We feel comfortable awarding to C&E.
Okay. Any council comments on that? Any questions for Mr. Smith or Mr. Morgan? Seeing none. Any public comment in regards to resolution 2323? Also seeing none. Can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2323 and lay upon the record?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Myers, seconded by Mr. Harden. Can I get a roll call?
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Have them go fix it. Okay, resolution 2324, appoint municipal court judge pro tem, city manager Smith.
Yes, members of the council. The last time, or in the Hermiston, in our city charter, we both elect our primary municipal judge, but you have the authority to appoint pro tem judges to sit in when either he's not available or the judge has a conflict with someone who might be appearing in court. And so because of some of the prior pro tem judges have become unavailable for various reasons, and the increase in, kind of activity in the court, we need some other backups. And so before you tonight is the request to appoint Carrie Meerdink to be a pro tem judge, and his background in being an administrative law judge, as well as he spent some time in our court as the prosecutor, we're requesting that he be appointed.
So how many pro tem judges do we have at the moment?
We have one other besides Mr. Meerdink.
So we definitely need at
Yes.
least a second.
And we may be very soon with another one, just to kind of have enough to take care of business.
Okay. And is there any council comment on resolution 2324? Yes, sir, Ms. McCarthy.
Would appreciate if we can, besides just that he is qualified, maybe a couple of bullet points worth of qualifications.
Okay? Maybe we can bring a resume next time for you, or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Are you looking for something today?
Well, I would feel more comfortable making a motion with that.
So I would say he's been a administrative law judge for more than 10 years. So hearing cases, DOT-related cases for the state around the region. And then Jillian, how long was he the prosecutor?
He started as the city prosecutor in the fall of 2020, I believe. And he just finished earlier this year.
So he's been the city prosecutor for the last 3.5 years.
Satisfactory to me.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the council? And the council also recognizes Ms. Linton as being present now. All right, so any public comment on resolution 2324? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2324 and lay upon the record?
So moved?
Second.
So moved by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Duran. Can I get a roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain, okay. Yes?
Yes.
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 Passes with six yes and 1 abstention. Okay, on to the next thing. Number 11, parade right-of-way closure discussion. City Manager Smith.
So this topic's been kind of out there on our list to discuss for a while, especially as we've gone through our ordinances to look at major revisions, but we kind of put it on a list to do as in the future when we had a little more time to get into a little more depth about the issue. And really it came back kind of to the top of our thinking as we had a request for a new or a different parade recently. And so we wanted to start working on this so we didn't have any others that might come forward and we not have a better process to deal with it. So we've been doing research, looking at other city ordinances, talking about ideas of things that we felt like needed to be addressed. I wanted to come to the council before we brought a draft ordinance to just have a discussion. If there's any items that the council felt were important. Some of the things that we're exploring in that ordinance would be instituting a fee for it. There's a lot of expense for doing a parade with blocking streets and providing safety and that type of thing. And so we recognize we probably won't be able to recover all that cost, but setting some kind of a fee that will recover some of that cost. Another idea is setting up fixed routes for a parade. If someone wants to have a parade, here's 2 routes. We know that way from a staff perspective, we know what it takes to, get all the street crossings taken care of, all of that. And so it can be done, and then we can have a handle on the safety of that. And then if someone wanted to go outside of that, we could, institute more of a cost recovery type of a situation if they wanted to do their own type of a route. And we could look at that maybe a little bit differently. That's how we've been thinking about it up to this point. Also getting some insurance requirements, working with our insurance provider to make sure that from a liability standpoint, we're covered. We've discussed grandfathering potentially existing parades that, the fair parade's been here for a long time. And, like the graduation parade that started a few years ago, doing a couple of those that might be treated differently than all other parades going forward. We've looked at some cities do barricading for those types of, and this is, I'm talking mostly parades, but we're also thinking about how we already allow a neighborhood, for example, to close their street and have a neighborhood party, a block party. And, that does cost city staff to go and, put out the barricades, take them down, those types of things. And so we've looked at the way other communities do it. Some require the people who are doing the block party to go rent their own barricades and put them up. And that, I think, is kind of a different look at how to assign the liability for the event. And so that's just one of the issues we've been talking through, what works. And then clean up afterwards. Is that some sort of a deposit, or do we, provide for that in the fee, knowing, that we're going to have to come behind a parade and maybe sweep the street for candy wrappers and whatever else might be created on the parade. So those are just some of these issues that we've talked about as we've started looking at it. We want to have just a brief discussion tonight, see if there were things that we're missing, or if you had any specific thoughts about these items, just so when we come back with a proposed ordinance, it would be more along the lines of what you guys are thinking, or you'd have at least an idea of the things we've been working on. So,
Mr. McCarthy, I saw your hand up first.
Would appreciate maybe like a 20,000-foot view of what the process is if I want to have a parade. What do I go through, and what are my existing basic guidelines?
So right now there's a form you fill out. It's reviewed by the chief of police and reviewed by the street department, and then that permit's issued. There's no fee currently, but that's the basic process. Right now, there's really not any noise ordinance in the current permit, no. But that's a good point to think about that.
Jackie?
As far as the routes, well, you're gonna have to put something in there of what's never going to be allowed, like down 395.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We hadn't really talked about saying, well, or even crossing
Right.
395 would be probably a no-no.
With exceptions.
Well, and that would be the one we've got, like I
Grandfather.
mentioned, having kind of grandfathering in the fair parade. But
Right.
other than that, it's just, yeah, that's not something we would be encouraging.
Yeah, so, things need to be put on there that, so as not to disappoint,
Right,
this is never going to be allowed.
right,
And then other options that would be.
right. That's a good point. We'll make that.
And I believe me personally, I believe putting in, the ability if they have, if they have a route that, they think looks, you know, for some reason, you know, there's a, you know, it's a bigger parade where
Mhm.
we say no on everything except this, you know, they, like say the fair parade for 395, but we say something else comes up, they have the ability to come to the council and request a variance from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, oh. me?
Yes,
Oh.
yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, I think having a fee would work out. And I think that for a parade outside of the ones that we've been having, that it should be covered by whoever wants to do the parade. That was something I was thinking about down the road for like, our Juneteenth, when we got bigger, that is.
Mhm.
It's too small now, but you know, I was hoping in the future, and I feel that if we did have something like that, that we should be able to cover the cost of it. I don't think the city or the taxpayer should have to cover the cost.
Yeah, we were definitely looking at not necessarily maybe a full cost recovery, but a lot more of a 75, 80% of the cost. Cause it's $3,000 to $5,000 to do just a limited route that we've kind of discussed, which is, probably 6 or 8 blocks kind of a thing.
And we have never charged for that.
That's
past.
correct, right? Yeah.
So we have, as a city, absorbed that cost always.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Duran?
City Manager Smith, did you say you were gonna also visit with other cities to see what they have in place? Because I think if we have something that we're gonna agree upon, why would we have to bring it to the city council if we are approving like, I guess the requirements or the policy that we are going to have in place? Would it be treated the same way as when our liquor license is, I guess, voted in, or?
Well, I guess I kind of hear 2 questions in that. One, yes, we have been looking at what other cities' ordinances look like and the things, every community is slightly different, right? Dealing with different things. And so we have been trying to see the things that we felt like would apply in our instance. But I don't know that we've seen specifically what maybe Councilor Primer was talking about, where if it doesn't meet these requirements, that the person that wanted to do the parade could bring it to the council for that. We haven't necessarily seen that. But, if you hit most of the parameters, it could be very limited situations where that would be the case. If the parameters were there, you need to meet these requirements, that kind of thing.
My thought on it was in the event that we have, like we define 1 or 2 specific, parade routes, but there is a route that, well, I'll just like the one that, let's say they wanted to do a parade up on Airport Road from, as part of a deal up there where that isn't normally part of the parade route. If they wanted to bring a different route and it's not on the approved list that they would have, there's an avenue for change.
Yeah, what we were looking at in that vein was that someone would, if they proposed a different route, that they would have to pay a greater fee. That would be a higher percentage of the cost because of it being different than what we kind of would normally do. And
And
that's how we had looked at it.
And timing, time limit.
Yeah.
And I noticed that somebody brought up noise, and I think that's a good,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good deal, because, I mean, yeah, it's just,
Or
but
a
I mean,
time of day kind of.
yeah,
thing.
time of day, you got midnight parade at, and they're wanting to, it's a car club wants to run their engines. That could be a,
You don't want to get all those calls?
well, I know somebody that doesn't want to get
Yeah.
all those calls. Okay. Any other questions or any other thoughts to process for Mr. Smith and company on that? Yes. Rob.
Just to clarify, I know we were talking fees, but when we talk about grandfathering existing events, we talking about grandfathering them without a fee also? Like
Probably,
the
yeah.
right route? Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure on that. That's fine.
Yeah, I would say that'd be a good idea. All right, so, any public comment on this? We have public, so any public comment? Remember, this is your chance to speak up. All right. So there's no action to be requested at this time, only feedback so that you can draft an ordinance or come up with a direction for us to go. So, all right. Moving along to the April 2024 financial report.
Yeah, so we'll start with the urban renewal area. And the property tax revenue in the urban renewal area is at 103% of our original projections, so doing well. The Second Street Gateway project is about 90% complete. We're waiting delivery of some of the decorative items that need to be installed, and so we didn't want to open it up and then have to close it and open it, so we're waiting for that. And those had a little bit of a long lead time, but I still think we're shooting for the end of June before when that project would be complete and open for the public. Then in the general fund, we have monthly revenues are slightly above projections, about 21,000, and our annual revenues are also still about 4% ahead of projections. So from an annual and a monthly standpoint, we're continuing to do well on revenues. On the expense side, our expenses were about $50,000 above our projections, but overall annual we're still about 9% below projections. So this month was just a little high, and $50,000 in our monthly expenses is not a big movement. Then utility and street funds, all of those are really in good shape. Nothing kind of out of the ordinary. The regional water fund is starting to move closer to our estimates every month as far as revenue in particular. And so I think that's kind of we're bringing on more of the data center customers. We're starting to catch up to what we lost in the Shears Foods closure.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so then on capital projects, there's 3 mentioned in the report that are in design. So we're still working on finalizing Gear and Harper, and that's including some potential right-of-way acquisition. Well number 6 and well number 4 both have some design going on projects that we plan and that were in the proposed budget to construct in the next fiscal year. And then Gladys Main and Newport water main replacements, we anticipate construction to start in early July on that project. That will be quite a traffic disruption on this side of the highway. Other projects, the Teen Adventure Park had a great opening a couple weeks ago. The sidewalk that will kind of finish the frontage of that is in design, and we'll be looking to put that out to bid with some other sidewalk work later in the year. The hangar replacement, the hangar has been removed and now starting to do some taxi lane construction in June, and then the actual hangar construction will start later in the year. Then just on a couple of the building projects, the IT build out, that should be completed in June downstairs, and we'll start moving IT over here. And then the Harkenrider, the framing and some of the concrete replacement that had needed to be done has been completed, and the subs are in doing electrical, plumbing, and getting all that ready, HVAC, to start some of the more finish work over there. It's probably about a month behind the IT project. And we're still finalizing the documents on the library. It should be in for plan review think it's in the middle of June. It'll go into, be submitted for a permit. So that'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. McCarthy.
If it would be appropriate to move this to a later meeting, that's fine, but since you brought up the second street gateway, would appreciate, because I'm seeing some confusion in discussions, outside of council meetings about where the community center will be accessible and which way we'll be able to travel on that. Would it be appropriate now to comment on where people will be able to enter and from which directions? Because I know people are disagreeing on that.
Yeah, I noticed that we have a lot of highway engineers that are on Facebook. Yeah, I'd like to get a map to you to show you a little bit better how that's going to work, and so we can prepare that and send that out and make it available.
I think putting that on our city page,
Yeah, we can do a Facebook
post, yeah, would be definitely, because I agree, there's a lot of subject matter experts out there that
There's some speculation on that.
Yeah,
so.
Just a little.
yeah, we'll help them see.
And I think it would also be helpful if folks were reminded that did not come out of the general fund, and that was all, the HERA part of things, and again, separate pile of money.
Right.
So just as a reminder, because there's we're spending, just willy-nilly spending money like that, so. Okay, okay, yes, Mr. Burrow.
Two-part question, and since Councilor McCarthy kind of brought it up on second place, are we still gonna have bilingual archways coming into town, is that right?
I don't believe we ended up with bilingual. It's still gonna just be downtown.
Downtown,
Yeah.
is there gonna be one in Spanish?
No, we weren't able to do that, get that to work.
Why not? I thought that was part of our discussion, I guess.
Well, that's not the way I recollect it. I'd be happy to talk to you offline.
Sure, we can do that. Second question is more just wanting to see, I guess, Mr. Palacios is going to present the financial report.
Well, I wanted him to get the budget done first, so I'm kind of taking other things off his plate. We'll be working on that into the summer.
Awesome. Thank you.
And he doesn't want to, if you just saw that.
Well, we all do things we don't want to do.
Coming off of
We'll get it.
success,
That's
we
right.
know.
We got the budget.
We'll get him there. We'll get him there.
We'll get there.
Okay. Anybody else have comments on financial report? Okay. Any public comment on the April 2024 financial report? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the April financial report as presented?
So move.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Litton, seconded by Ms. Meyer. And roll call.
Yes.
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 Passes unanimously. All right. City committee and liaison reports. Do we have any? Looks like Mr. McCarthy got his hand up first.
I don't think the date has technically been agreed on yet for the budget, not for the budget, for the business license fee updated meeting, but it's coming up.
June 10th.
June 10th is we finalized. Okay, perfect. So we'll have another one June 10th coming up with those members of the council and the public who are representative.
Okay. Mr. Burrow.
I was gonna say, we all had our budget committee, right?
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna speak to that too, so.
only thing, we had our budget committee. I just personally want to thank our budget committee members, Mr. David Hanson, Brian, Mr. Wayness, former Counselor Lori Davis, Mr. Brookshire, Mr. McAndrew, Mr. Magana, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Douglas. Also, just very specifically on my part, specifically Mr. David Hanson, who I had the pleasure of sitting next to. was a very prepared budget committee member, as I saw everybody else be very prepared. But just getting to sit next to him, having some conversations, it's really great that we have, you know, great members of that committee that, you know, came prepared, did their homework, and gave us a really great perspective. So I just want to give a shout out to those individuals. And yeah, it was a great budget committee meeting.
Okay. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So I attended the library board meeting on the 22nd, and basically brainstorming ways to, whenever they get to the renovation, how they're going to get some of the books that will be in circulation, and where they're going to be able to store the ones that aren't because of the remodel that will be happening. So threw some ideas out there, and I don't know whether Mr. Rose has shared them with you, but it'll be, more information will be coming to the community as to when those changes might come into play. As you heard, some of those dates are being determined, and more information will be coming this summer. I too like the process for the budget committee meeting, the reports, the way that it was explained. I think it was a better way, and so a lot of things come out from the learning experience from last year. And what I also appreciate, City Manager Smith, is how you came to us last year. I'm sure it was not an easy thing to face the counselors with the budget shortfall. But I appreciate how you came together with your team, with each department head, and how everyone pretty much cooperated. And I guess decided how they were going to maybe tighten their belts a little bit in each of the departments, so that no one had to be laid off, you know, and so that major cuts would not happen. So I appreciate the work that you, as well as the department heads, in coming together for, you know, a better outcome, I guess. And thank you for the work that you did on the city budget. And I too look forward to hearing from Mr. Ignacio in our future meetings.
I just want to say thank you. We have a great team. The department heads do a great job, and I really appreciate their dedication.
Okay, any other city committees or liaisons? Seeing none. Council President's report. Well, okay, so we just beat up the budget meeting one on my list pretty good. Yeah, we did. There was a lot of good information. There's still some things that need to be looked at, and we'll be expecting to hear more on some of that stuff as time progresses. Information, clarifications and such. The election is, and the primary is finally over. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm glad about that. Looks like the process has worked. Today is, well, 13 minutes ago, it's the last votes will have been counted supposedly, so we'll see where it finally ends up. I personally want to thank those that I ran against. It was a good process, and I appreciate everything that was done and said. Learned a lot from a lot of people. So, and since you're sitting right here, Jackie, thank you. And thanks to Nancy and Manuel as well. So, got some things coming up in the future, so looking forward to all of that. And with that, council report. Anybody having anything to say? Mr. McCarthy, quick with the hand tonight.
Just wanted to mention, if you recall, I think it was Mr. Thomason spoke at a handful of meetings ago talking about his organization, Equality Without Exception. They're going to be having their Pride event at EOTech this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then the parade at 6 o'clock. And then the senior walk is coming up, so make sure you're paying attention and don't drive right around that time. But that's at a parade exception as well, I would probably guess.
Okay. Ms. Duran?
I guess not a report, but I am going to be late to our meeting on the 10th, as I will be at the board meeting giving a report on something that, a committee that I'm a part of, so
Okay,
I'll be coming in late.
all right. Ms. Linton?
I'm gonna start off by saying thank you to you. I'm glad that we had 4 people running, and I'm hoping that with the city council that's coming up, more people will run for that. I hate seeing just one person run because you really don't have an option there. And some people are saying, well, we thought about it, but they don't want to do it because they're afraid that they may be attacked or something by people on the outside, not in here. And that's a possibility that it can happen, but don't let that stop you. Run, please. Okay, so couple of things I wanted to bring up to hope that we can, for discussion down the road, and that's with Harkenreiter of having, hiring 2 cooks on a 1099. That way there'll be contract cooks, and so that the seniors can have meals every day, or at least 4 days a week, and reduce the cost from $5 to $2.50. Because when I talked to an individual over there, they said they wouldn't be able to afford $5 a day, for the whole week. And so I understand that. And so that's something I would like, hopefully the council, we can discuss on that. And then the other one was with the chamber. I think it's been at 3% that they've been giving for a number of years. And I would like to see that go up to maybe like 8% to help them be able to do more things within the chamber. And what I was looking at, on the sheet that we had at the budget committee, maybe taking a 0.5% off each one, like it was one, so I can't remember which one got 37.5%, but give them 37%, take off 0.5 and do it down the road. And then that way we'd be able to have the money without having to come up with it any other way. And one other thing, as I was campaigning, I was talking to people about the library, what they felt about that. I know it's going to happen anyway. And I was talking to people about the, putting in the fiber, I guess, whatever you need for the broadband. And everybody I talked to said no to both. They did not want it to happen. So I don't know if we're having a disconnect or what's going on in that area, but not one person was for it.
Okay. Any others? All right, we have no youth advisors here today. I'm gonna go off script for a second and offer the council, the citizen board, or yeah, thank you. I'm horrible with names, so I'm sorry. So if any of you guys, anything you guys would like to throw out there, listening to what we talked about today,
Yeah, I just have one thing.
step up and let us know.
And it's just listening through and just some of the comments that we heard and stuff, is lean into those difficult conversations. Don't automatically put up a barrier like, oh, I don't want to talk about that because I don't like it, right? Like, to give off that impression is creating a barrier to that communication. And the other thing with that is our community, and we didn't state this earlier, but we have the second largest Latino Hispanic community per capita in the state of Oregon. We're just behind Woodburn, Oregon. So I'm just gonna ask personally, I'm not for the academy, but lean into that. That's a whole culture that's very different from many people who have grown up here and have various, I guess you could say, ancestors that have grown up in these areas, and lean into it. Why not? Why not lean into it? That's a whole demographic of people that have so much to contribute. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other academy members of the academy? Please step on up.
I'm not representing the poor right now. I'm representing a citizen, an ordinary citizen. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Just having the observation of people coming before you from the academy, I hope you don't take it personal because it's not about one sole person I'm pretty sure you have heard this before. It's not personal, it's not about you, but it's about the whole community. And I hope that you see these eight, well, the two they're missing, these eight new leaders, part of you, breaching the community. It takes a village. We were talking about Nate and I outside. It takes a village, right, to really make things happening. So I think eight leaders, new leaders, they're bridging. You can now walk through any community because they're the bridge. And I hope Byron and Mr. Smith and we can talk about a way to bring back, another cohort, of leaders. And you not only will have eight, but you will have duplicating, you will have 16 people. And you have new things coming on. You have new items in the agenda. You want people to be informed. You're gonna have eight leaders to help you out. It's not only one person's job. It's everybody's interest in the community. So just thank you for having the cohort and seeing these people in action. It was very, and I'm passionate about leadership development, as you can tell. So just seeing them practicing the 15 minutes, it was here. I'm taking them in my heart. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
You bet. As I said, this is it's exciting to see people getting excited about this. I mean, we're all volunteers just like they are. And so we, seeing new leaders come into this is beyond refreshing. One of the things that that got me to run a long time ago was the saying, the world is run by those who show up. And you guys have shown up. And so run the place. Show us how it's done, please. With that, Mr. Smith.
Wait, may I say something?
Sure.
I'll make it short, I promise.
Very.
I think a lot of the times too, people don't understand the process and why we don't engage, right at the moment. Because, for example, if I have questions ahead of the meeting, I normally reach out to the city manager or whoever I need to reach out to let them know, like, hey, can we have a discussion later as a group, or I didn't understand. Sometimes we do that, or sometimes we do it here, but it doesn't mean that we won't have it. It's just there's a timing issue. There's the agenda as well. So it's not that we don't want to have a discussion, but it may be that it's not going to happen right at the second, but it will be planned for another time.
All right, now, Mr. Smith.
Well, I just want to say thanks to the group again. I appreciate their willingness to give up their time to do a little bit to understand, more about our community and how this process works. So I appreciate their efforts. And I have no other items.
Well, with that, then we are adjourned. Shut up.